Alright, so what I want to do here is to create an accompanying video for a blog post of mine by the same name, which provides a critique of the common libertarian objection to economic redistribution and government-provided goods or services, which is to proclaim that taxation is theft. I'm sure it's something you're familiar with. This is just for people who may prefer this medium to reading. So the common libertarian argument goes, Premise 1. Theft is the taking of property without consent, typically through force or fraud. Premise 2. Taxation takes property without consent. Conclusion, therefore, taxation is theft. I got this presentation of the argument from libertarian philosopher Michael Huemer, and I always find this quite puzzling because libertarians have such a strong confidence in this argument, despite some clear weaknesses, and I suspect this is primarily because many people on the left tend to provide rather poor rebuttals to it. So, in the absence of a good one, I'm hoping this will serve that purpose to provide a proper rebuttal to the libertarian argument. My critique will come in the form of rejecting the truth of premise 2, that taxation takes property without consent. My reasoning for doing this is that the conclusion seems to fall from the premises, and premise 1 seems rather unobjectionable. It is also unobjectionable that taxation is done without consent, right? It's done through coercion. The government says, hand over this money, or we will institute some fine, or possibly throw you in jail. So my objection will be that what is taxed and taken without consent is not really the property of the person being taxed. There are two ways to construe property in the above argument, the legal sense or the moral sense. I can deal with these understandings in turn. The legal definition is not the definition that I believe libertarians are actually using, but it is worth quickly dealing with just for the sake of covering all bases. Something is your property in the legal sense if it is defined by the law as such. If the government changes the law to redefine property rights such that it is no longer your property, then it can take the property without it being considered theft under premise 1. This is effectively what the government does when it passes some tax law. It redefines some portion of your holdings as the government's property rather than yours. So the government is merely claiming its legally defined property when it taxes you. It should be noted that the law merely defines what is currently your effective property, not what ought to be your property. It is for these reasons that the taxation is theft argument fails under the legal sense of property. Once again, the legal sense is not what I believe the libertarian has in mind when putting forward the taxation is theft argument, and consequently, this doesn't serve as a proper rebuttal. Instead, what the libertarian has in mind is property in its moral sense. On this understanding, the claim that something is your property is to claim that you are entitled to said thing. You are the rightful owner. Unfortunately for the libertarian, this understanding dooms their argument once premise 2 is reached. Premise 2 assumes that what is being taxed is the rightful property of the person being taxed. If this is not true, then the libertarian argument quickly falls apart. The libertarian has a particular theory of what is one's rightful property in mind when it claims taxation is theft. That is, you are entitled only to what is voluntarily transferred to you by a previous legitimate owner. But the problem for the libertarian is anyone who is advocating for the previously described tax would disagree with this conception of property. They are instead operating under some different theory of entitlement. The non-libertarian may simply deny that the tax takes someone's property without consent, since what is being taken does not rightfully belong to the taxed person. When putting forward the taxation is theft argument, the libertarian assumes their theory of property rights to be the correct one. The libertarian is hardly entitled to this assumption, since the proper theory of property rights is precisely what is being debated when arguing about taxation policy. If the libertarian attempted to rebuke another theory of entitlement by claiming taxation is theft, they are essentially arguing that their opponent's theory to be false because the libertarian one is true. This is a nonsensical argument, and the libertarian should instead confront their opponent's argument head-on instead of simply assuming their position to be true.